Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone coming today. It's a testament to, I think, the effort on behalf of the Canadian Cardiovascular Society, everyone in this room, to engage patients and carers. So thank you for that. Just to put everything into context, I'll be talking about advanced heart failure. I was 23 when I was diagnosed with heart failure. That was in 2008. And I know what you're thinking. Look at all these young people with heart failure. They're so good looking. How do I get that? That was my only joke of the session because I only have 5 minutes. So I was diagnosed at the age of 23 with heart failure. And at that time, I developed a cold, what I thought was a cold. And then I developed what both myself and my GP thought was a flu. That flu, in all actuality, turned into idiopathic dilated cardiomyopathy. So at age 23, I was told that I had an ejection fraction of between 5 to 10% and my heart was failing. So immediately, I was implanted with an ICD and I was put on the heart transplant list because I was told by 2009 in the spring if I didn't receive a heart that I might not make it. And that was hard to take. Someone coming into their first career, someone really in the next stage of their life, being diagnosed with heart failure and having to be on a heart transplant list. But fast forward, I got better, as I did along through my journey, and I was taken off the transplant list. And the next few years, up until about 2014, were relatively stable. I had some ups and downs, yes, but I got through them. It wasn't until 2014 when I think my early stages of advanced heart failure began. I was playing squash, as I did 2 to 3 times a week, quite an intensive sport, with 2 of my best friends who have been by my side for almost my entire life. And I passed out. And so my friends thought, okay, Marc's done this twice before, and his ICD triggered. So I'm laying on the floor, they're looking at me, and my ICD doesn't trigger. So what next? Well, one person go call 911, one person starts CPR. That day on the court, squash court, I had CPR for about 8 to 9 minutes, I was told, until the paramedics came. I was then taken to the hospital and put in an induced coma for 8 days, and I was in the CCU for 2 weeks. And a part of that, my wife that morning had left Portland to go visit her friend because Marc was stable, Marc was good. Little did we know internally that there's a major issue happening. So imagine receiving that call when she arrives in Portland at 3:30. Hey, Marc had another cardiac arrest, atrial fibrillation. She's thinking, okay, and? But this time he didn't wake up, so you have to come home. As a caregiver, receiving that phone call has an emotional impact. Me waking up 8 days later, being in CCU, not only has a physical impact, but takes an emotional and mental toll as well. And that was the beginning of my advanced heart failure. Over the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years, I had periods of stability, periods of instability. In fact, in 2015, I was able to get married to the love of my life, Jessica, and I was even able to travel. And so by all accounts, I thought things were good, but internally, things were going the opposite direction. Between 2016 and 2017, I had 6 episodes of cardiac arrest where I went to atrial fibrillation, sometimes where my heart rate would get up to 220, 240. 6 times. 3 of those times, my ICD triggered and brought me back. 3 of those times, I required CPR. So think about that. 6 times, my heart failed me. 3 times my device worked. 3 times I required CPR. Now think about this. Those 3 times, if I was alone in my bathroom, I was alone at home, I was on the road, I might not be here. Not only did I think about that daily, my wife thought about that daily, my caregivers thought about that daily. Living with advanced heart failure, this is what we went through every single day. On the 6th time, we went for an ablation. It was a failed ablation, unfortunately, and I've never seen a physician so livid. He came into the room after, and he said, why is Marc not on the transplant list? This is the worst heart I've ever seen. I thought there, and I thought to myself, wow, my heart's the worst heart, one of the worst hearts he's ever seen. And that was emotionally devastating for me. Something in my body was failing me that bad that a physician was so angry. He said, why isn't it on the transplant list? So I was soon worked up and I was put on the transplant list 7 days later. I got the call in January of that year. I got to the emergency room. I got downstairs, got to the OR, false alarm. That's okay. Back on the list I go. May of that year, and I'll wrap it up quick. May of that year, I have another incident. Atrial fibrillation, ICD, triggers after 30 seconds of CPR. Now what do? He's on the transplant list. It's getting worse. My team decided on an LVAD. Half my team decided on an LVAD. 50% said yes, 50% said no. The decision was up to me. Being informed, I received the education, I asked the right questions, and I may have taken an unpopular decision, but at the end of the day, I decided that LVAD was not for me. I looked at quality of life, I looked at the risks and the benefits. 3 weeks later, fortunately, it worked out, and I received the call again. I went into the operating room June 5th at 11:30 p.m. I was out by 3:30 on June 6th, 2017. So grateful for my healthcare professionals, my team at the hospital, my caregivers, the support I've received, and of course my donor for giving me a second chance of life. So that was living with advanced heart failure. And now I'm gonna pass it on and finish up, and thank you again for allowing us to share our stories, really, and taking the time to listen. Thank you.